Hi everybody, you're very welcome to our session on MIC Thurles, and we have some wonderful students in our company today, and we are going to have basically a conversation that you can eavesdrop on and listen to what we have to say. And everybody here has been paid a fortune to say good things about Thurles, isn't that correct? But really what we're about having a conversation so that if you're in the wonderful position out there of thinking of coming our way, that you can make a more informed decision. And we do appreciate, look, it's a great time when you have so many choices, but sometimes all those choices can weigh heavy on you as well and you're not too sure what to do. So the idea behind today is that we will have a conversation in your company, and we'd obviously invite you through the chat bar to submit questions that you may have for us. I'm going to ask a few questions, and maybe I might be asked a few questions too by our students here, and that will begin the conversation. But obviously, if you have a burning question, feel free to use the chat bar, and we'll be here for about 40 minutes shooting the breeze, taking it handy. And we have 6 on camera as I speak, 6 students, and the way I see them, I have Emma first, then Nikita, then Bevan, then Alana, Grace and Brian. So thank you each and every one of you for being here today. I know you're busy people doing busy things, and we have Emma, you're in first year. So I think we'll start with you in a moment. You might just say who you are, where you are and what you're studying. And then we'll go to second year. Alana, you might take up the honours in second year. Nikita and Bevan come in third year. And then we have the old fogies who are finishing up with us, Grace and Brian. Hard to believe the 4 years have gone, but so they have. Okay, so Emma, do you want to tell us where you are and what you're studying? And we'll start our conversation.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Emma Byrne. I'm a first year student in MIC Thurles, and I'm studying the BA in Irish and Business.
Thank you very much, Emma.
No problem.
And I will now turn to Alana, and Alana, maybe you might tell us about you.
So hi everybody, my name is Alana and I'm a second year student in MIC Thurles, and the subjects that I chose to study are Maths and Irish.
Thank you very much, Alana. And now I will go to Nikita, and maybe you might say a few words.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Nikita. I'm from Cork, and I am in third year studying business and accounting.
Thank you, Nikita. And over to you, Bevan.
Hi, I'm Bevan. I'm from Wicklow, and I am in third year of business and religion.
Thank you, Bevan. And next is Grace.
Yeah, so the old folks, as Finn calls us. My name is Grace. I am from West Cork. I'm in fourth year, and the subjects that I'm doing are Irish and business. So I'm actually finished.
You certainly are. Thank you, Grace. And well done on finishing too. And over to you, Brian.
Yeah, hello, my name is Brian. I'm from Limerick, and I am studying just on 4 years studying business and religion.
Okay, so I think we have most subjects captured. We certainly have the years captured. So maybe if I go in reverse on this occasion and just ask Brian and Grace, why would you recommend Thurles? What has been your experience? What's the thing about Thurles that you would be saying to our listeners? You know what? Give this a go. Will I start with Brian, because you were last to speak the last time, Brian?
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, so I decided to pick Thurles for my college because I felt that it was a really nice, small, connected community kind of college, small lectures, small class sizes. The subjects that I wanted to pursue were available, and I really enjoyed my 4 years there. It was great to learn so much about the teaching profession, from the wonderful lectures and stuff like that we have, and for the subjects, and also to, as I kind of said, like, it's so small that it's like a community. Everyone knows each other. We're on first name basis with a lot of the lecturers and the staff and the college. We have lots of events and stuff like that to just build on it, and it was a really enjoyable 4 years in Thurles. So yeah, I just
okay. Thank you, Brian. And is there any danger? Like, we expect that we'll probably have just shy of 500 students maybe come September. So is there any danger that we're too small from your perspective?
I don't think so, because when you look at other colleges, you might have 500 in a course, like a single course, while this you have 500 over 4 years, with 5 or 6 different courses in each year. So I don't think so. I think it's still kind of small in comparison to other colleges, but it is good that there's more numbers as well, because you have more friends, you have more insights, you get more of a variety of different people and stuff like that. So yeah, there are pros and cons, but I think that the bigger the numbers that go to Thurles, the better as well, the more it kind of puts Thurles on the map as well.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And Brian, you travelled from Limerick. I'm going to turn to Grace. Grace, you were saying from West Cork. So what brought you to Thurles, and why would you suggest others should go?
Yeah, well, I think similar to Brian, it was the fact that it was a smaller college that kind of suited me. I came from a small enough secondary school and I wanted the same experience. I think the subjects really suited me. Irish was my favourite subject in school, and business was probably one of my best, so it suited me in that way. Sounds as cliche as it was, but I do think I always kind of wanted to be a teacher, and the secondary school teaching just really suited me. My experience, like Brian's, has been amazing. I've been great friends with Brian since first year, so it just shows that across 4 years you really do keep your friends here. I say here as though I'm still there, but you know. As well as that, Brian and I got the opportunity to go abroad, which was something unexpected. And I think that, you know, it's such a massive thing that you could get through this course, whereas I suppose it's not available in other colleges, so that has to be mentioned too. But apart from that, similar to Brian, the small community, great friends, as well as lecturers who really do know you, whether that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose it's helpful from the point of view, if, as Brian said, if you're stuck, you've got somebody you can go to, and in turn, if you go missing, or if a friend goes missing or is under pressure or in trouble, we can always send a gentle email just to see. We're not a school. We hasten to add, we're not a school, but we are a place where we notice people if they're under pressure, and we always offer support in a respectful manner, or so we'd like to think anyway. So tell us, Grace, about the travel. Where did you go?
So yeah, we went in 2020, so when we were allowed to travel. So there were 6 of us that went internationally. 4 of us went to Boston and 2 went to Tokyo. So Brian and myself were 2 of the 4 that went to Boston. We went over to Boston College, but we went over there for a 2-week period. 1 week we were visiting different sorts of school settings. So there was elementary schools, the high schools, and then for the 2nd week we attended Boston College lectures. And the main purpose of our trip was to experience a different education system and see what we could bring back into the Irish education system, and I suppose better ourselves as teachers going forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Yeah, and a great experience indeed, and you did us proud to the extent that they want us back, and we'll have more students traveling to Tokyo, Boston and other faraway places. I think New York is on the cards once all the restrictions lift as well. And we also have Australia in the background there. And we've made contacts as well with students in Malawi. And I'm going to go to, if I may, I'm going to go to Alana, because Alana, do you want to tell us about your experience in Thurles, and maybe a brief comment on that Malawi connection that we made?
Yeah, so I chose MIC Thurles because, similar to what's been said, it is a very small community, and I went to a very small secondary school, and that really appealed to me. And the opportunities that I've had in the last little while have just been absolutely fantastic. So as Finn said, in recent weeks, one of the things that we were able to do was to connect with student teachers in Malawi and learn about their education system, how they do things over there, and it was definitely a fantastic experience. I mean, we were talking to people doing primary teaching, secondary teaching, special education teaching, and it was definitely something that kind of opened our eyes up to different methods, different ways of, like, different cultures, everything. So it was a fantastic experience.
Thanks, Alana, and you're too humble to say as well that you were front and centre in our Go Figure project, which was us working with Leaving Cert students in direct provision and helping them. I guess one of the outcomes of COVID was we were able to do it online, and that opened up that world for us, as did the connection with Malawi. So thanks for that, Alana. I'll come back to you in a moment. I'll come back to all in a moment, but I'll just keep going. For a moment, Nikita, you're another West Cork woman. Do you want to tell us what was good about Thurles from your perspective, or is good, given that you have one more year to go?
Well, I was a bit apprehensive to go to Thurles at the start, being honest. But when I got offered it, I went up to the college to actually see it, and I actually met Finn Ó there as well. And as soon as I went in, it was just, there was such a nice atmosphere inside there, even though there was no students in there. But I did go there, it's a small college, really, like it's a community, as you said. And even when you're walking down the corridor, you might know the person, but everyone says hello. And to talk to the lecturers, you'd meet them anywhere and they'd chat away to you, or if you had any questions, drop them an email and straight away they'll respond to you. So that was one of the main reasons why I went there, because it was a nice small community, and the atmosphere even in the building itself is just lovely. When you walk in, it's really, really welcoming. So that was that's why I went there. Yeah. Excellent,
Nikita, thank you for that. And Byrne, do you want to come in fresh from your international duties? Do you want to tell us about that as well?
Yeah, so I came to Thurles a bit unconventionally. So when I was in school, all I wanted was primary teaching, but unfortunately didn't get it in my Leaving Cert, so I done a year of arts in Limerick. And my mum actually was the one that kind of swayed me towards Thurles, and I actually attended the student teacher experience, and it was on that day my mind changed completely, and honestly it's the best move I've ever made. It's given me so many opportunities that I probably wouldn't have put myself forward for if I had been still on a bigger campus. And one, of course, is the Green Campus. So our committee was set up in 2017, and this year we were lucky to receive our Green Campus flag. Very few campuses in the country have actually taken the initiative to begin working towards them. We're lucky enough to be one of them, and as a result I got to speak at the Earth Action Hub online festival last weekend, where I got to speak about the work we've done and what we hope to do in the future, as well as how important I think, and of course the committee thinks, sustainable education is for teacher education. And we recommended Thurles' model for the Green Campus Committee to other campuses around the world. I got to engage with a student from Malaysia and another girl from Portugal. And it was so interesting to share ideas and just hear how different campuses operate, and obviously green campuses operate across the world. But obviously got to put Thurles on the map as well.
Exactly.
I remarked afterwards that if I said Thurles anymore, she'd think it was the only word that came out of my mouth. But it just shows how proud I am of where I'm in college.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Byrne. And now, Emma, I'm going to come to you, Emma, because let's be fair. Brian and Grace year 4, Alana year 2, Nikita and Byrne year 3. They've all been on campus. You were first year this year, and tell us the sum total of days you were on campus.
The funny thing is, I was on campus for the orientation day, but after that it was a big fat 0. So I've been at home for the whole year, and people will say, oh, that's terrible, or like, oh, how could you stick it, or how could you cope? But it actually flew. The year went by so quickly, I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm sitting here still, and like I finished my exams like on a random like Monday afternoon, and I was like, oh, it's summer now. But it was strange in that way, but at the same time I still like felt like I was part of like MIC Thurles. Like, I went to lots of open days, so I did my Leaving Cert like 2020 and in the predicted grades, and I went to lots of open days kind of throughout 5th and 6th year, and I wanted to be like, you know, do primary teaching like Bevan, and that was all I had in my head, and it was like St. Pat's in Dublin, and I went up there and I just, do you know when you go into a college or somewhere and you just feel like it doesn't sit right with you? And that was, I was thinking, oh my God, like after all this, and it's not even what I expected it to be. So my mum actually said to me, she was like, oh, why don't we go down to Thurles for a spin and see what it's like? And when I went in, and like there was tea and biscuits and pastries and people were talking and you could sit down and listen, and it just felt like I wasn't a number. It actually felt like I was a person, and people asked me like, what course were you thinking of? Whereas in lots of the bigger colleges, I'm not saying they're bad or anything, but it just, you feel like you're actually part of the college when you're in Thurles, whether you're online or there in person. So I'm hoping next year that I will actually get to see people in the flesh.
Yeah, that it's not all a figment of your imagination. We do exist, and
Yeah.
at least you got one day, so you do know we exist.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lovely point you're making as well, that we know people by their names as opposed to any number, or we don't ask people what's your number. We say, if we don't know your name, we say what's your name, and that goes for professional services as well as our professional lecturers. So thank you for the commentary there. Now, all going well, we will be face to face next year, and we will be doing a whole load of things, including school placement as well. And I would like to talk to you about school placement in a moment, but just for now, I know from talking to you online, you have a passion for Gaeilge, and Grace, you have a passion for Gaeilge. Alana, your maths and Gaeilge. Brian, you were business and religion, correct? And Nikita, your business and
Accounting.
And accounting, sorry, yeah. And Bevan, you came in then with religion and business. So tell us about okay, we'll talk about the education and the teaching side. You've touched on it already. But who would like to maybe talk about the importance of their subject and having a passion for your subject? Could I ask maybe Grace, as you introduced the topic, what is it that's important from a teaching perspective to be here for 4 years as opposed to doing a PME and maybe, just doing your degree for 3 or 4 years and then doing your teaching?
Well, I think for me, it was like the 4 years was very practical and on the job, I suppose, experience. Across the 4 years, we had 1 week in a primary school, I suppose, to kind of get to know the students and the maturity and levels of Gaeilge for me, I suppose, coming into first year. And in second year, I did a 6-week placement in a community school. So it was something different for me, the idea of teaching boys with girls. Third year, as I said, Brian and I went to Boston, so we had kind of an international placement. And this year I did 12 weeks of my own post-primary school where I went. And I suppose for me, it was the fact that I've had over 20 weeks experience in 4 years with going back to college, practicing again, you're saying, okay, this didn't go well on placement, how can I improve? And I suppose, Finn, through you and the other lecturers, that's how we improved, was communicating with you and collaborating with our peers, whether it be teaching or whatever. I think that's what I mostly benefited from the 4-year program against a PME. I mean, I didn't do a PME, but being on placement with others, I think being put in there at the start definitely helped me, because I couldn't have any opinions on what could happen. It was just get on with it and go do it. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Grace. And I got to ask Brian a similar question. Brian, from your perspective, is it advantageous to, the first day that you cross and come into Thurles, you're learning to teach and you're learning about your business and religion as well? How did that play off for you?
Yeah, as you said there, it kind of all overlaps. You're not going and you're studying your separate subjects and then you're studying education. Everything overlaps together, and it makes everything so much easier. When you're doing business, you're also learning how to become a business teacher. When you're doing religion, you're learning how to become a religion teacher. And then there's an overlap then as well with the education. And you're constantly studying all the modules, so your education and your 2 subject modules throughout your 4 years. So you've constantly got that playing, as opposed to doing a PME where you do everything separately. and you can make links then within your own head as well, like, oh, we're doing this topic now in business now, how would I teach this if I was to do, like, teach it or stuff like that. So it definitely does help. And as well, as Grace was saying there, the school placement, the way the program of the 4 years is set up is absolutely fantastic, that you can get your degree at the end, that you're fully qualified within 4 years. You know, it's great. And as I said, like, there is just so much overlap that it would kind of in a way be silly not to, if the subjects are on offer, like, it would be silly not to, you know.
Yeah, and I guess it's cheaper as well, both time wise. It's 4 years instead of 6 or so, and it's also cheaper from the point of view of it's 2 years less, and you're earning for 2 years before somebody else might be finished on a PME. Yeah, so thanks for that, Brian. Can I ask Nikita, business and accounting? Did you do accounting and business in Leaving Cert?
I did business for Leaving Cert and I absolutely loved it, but I never did accounting until I actually went to Thurles. So when I had put it down on my CAO, I was quite nervous about it because, you know, accounting can be very full on and you kind of either get it or you don't. So I wasn't good at it when I did it in junior cert business. So when I went to Thurles, I was quite stressed and worried about it. But the classes in Thurles are so small that you're starting accounting from scratch, and the lecturers are absolutely excellent in accounting, and they're very approachable. So any extra help you need, they're willing to help you. And like, you can ask questions so easily because there's only max 30 in the class. So you can ask any questions you want and not be afraid to ask questions. And it was just from the start, and I really enjoy accounting now, sometimes more than business. So it's good, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. And from the point of view of those of you listening in, you don't need to have it in your Leaving Cert. You don't need accounting. You don't need business in your Leaving Cert, and you don't need religion in your Leaving Cert either. There are stipulations around Gaeilge and maths, but the other subjects are okay. Can I ask one more question before we go to the audience, because I know there's some questions coming in. Could I ask Emma and Alana, from a Gaeilge point of view, is there a big step up into the Gaeilge, or did you find it manageable? Maybe Alana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I personally did find the change from post-primary to third level quite difficult in relation to Irish. It definitely was a step up having absolutely everything being taught through Irish, but at the same time you do get very used to it, and there are fantastic supports in the college that, you know, as soon as you are struggling with something, or even if you just want a little bit of extra practice, that there are great supports that you can reach out, and the lecturers, they are more than happy to help you.
Okay, thank you for that, Alana. And Emma, have you a similar view?
I'm kind of the same as Alana. There would be a little bit, you would notice a little step up from secondary to third level. But what I would say is that if you actually, it is going to sound so cliche, but if you actually practice your Irish, and I found, like, at the end of first year you have to sit Scrúdú Béal. So this year it was done online with 2 lecturers, and it's just an informal chat, and I just want to see how your Irish is. And I really found, I used to practice with my friends. So we used to, like, set up like FaceTime or MS Teams and have, like, just normal conversations together. So I found from the start, if you actually make the effort on one of the Irish courses to speak Irish and, like, communicate with your friends through Irish, I found that really helped me. And also Nora is one of the staff members in MIC Thurles, and she provides, like, grinds and help during the week, and she, like, saved my life going up to the Scrúdú Béal, because it was great to be able to go and speak to Nora, who was so experienced with Irish, and she could help you with corrections and things. So I definitely say, if you're going to do an Irish course, from the beginning, just begin to talk Gaeilge with your friends, because it'll help you so much.
Thanks, Emma, and thanks, Alana. And there are 1 or 2 questions on Gaeilge which I'm going to ask of you in a second. That academic learning centre is in addition to our lecturers and the good work and support that our lecturers offer. And I suppose it's an important point, especially from one of the questions that comes in here is, did Alana, Grace and Emma, did you go to a Gaeilge school and did you come to the college fluent in Irish? So maybe Grace, do you want to go first on that one?
No, I am absolutely not remotely fluent. I think it was just the graph or the teanga, which is what I loved about it. I suppose I was handy enough at it in school. My teanga Laurha was good, but I was by no means fluent, and I think that must be mentioned too that I was very apprehensive about it too, kind of saying, God, will I be able for it? But you know, made it through 4 years, and you do just be a kind of Gaeilge and it. It's very just casual now, you know, at the start it's kind of saying, God, this is a bit strange, but it really is, just comes naturally. So definitely don't let the Gaeilge put you off. You do have to work hard, as Emma said, at it, but like that's the same with everything. No, didn't go to Gaeilge school, it's just through practice.
Anava, Gormila, Grace, Alana?
Yeah, so the same as Grace, I didn't go to a Gaeilge school. I was also very nervous about choosing Irish to study in college, but I just always had a love for it. I didn't mind putting in the work, and it definitely is something that you need to work at. I mean, I think the first couple of months it is very strange. It does take a while to get used to talking in Irish the whole time, or you know, replying to your emails in Irish, but it is very manageable, and you would be so surprised with how fast that you pick it up and how much that you learn.
Okay, thank you for that, Lana. And Emma?
Oh, no, I didn't go to a Gaeilge school either. I went to a normal secondary school, but the same as the girls, like I just really loved Irish, and I just found it like it's such a nice language to speak and how to communicate with everyone. But I did work as a kinnera in like Irish summer camps, so that really kind of helped me and like gave me the confidence to choose the course, because the same as the girls, I was worried about my own level and would I be confident enough to do it. But I'd say if you're thinking about it, you're on the right track already, I'd say. And just with practice and a little bit of confidence, you'll be fine.
Yeah. I think the most important thing I've learned looking at students over the past 5 years on the program is it's about attitude as much as ability. That if you have the right attitude towards practicing, and that peer support that you've mentioned as well, like there's 50% of our student population study Gaeilge, so that means that you've got lots of people that you can speak Irish with, and there's a few old stagers like myself that like to practice as well, and that's an added bonus, I guess. Another question that came in here, I think we kind of answered it, but just to make sure, you don't need religion in your leaving cert, correct? No, and you don't need business and you don't need accounting in your leaving cert. You do need maths and you do need Gaeilge. That's that one. There's a question on placement, which we'll come to in a sec. Did all of these students stay on campus in first year, apart from being online? So yeah, what's the story with accommodation, first year accommodation, and then we'll go forward. So Grace and Brian. Brian?
So yeah, so myself and Grace, we actually stayed on campus in first year. So we were one of the lucky ones that got chosen, but by all means there was other accommodation available as well. There is a list on the MIC website, as far as I know, of accommodation in Thurles, and there's loads of landlords and around the place. There is on-campus accommodation that was fantastic. They're all single bed ensuite rooms with shared kind of kitchen, living rooms, and it was great to get that and to be able to make friends and stuff like that. Like myself and Grace met there first day and we're still friends 4 years later, unfortunately. No, I'm only messing, but yeah, it is a great way to make friends, but there is other accommodation available as well. That's all I would say.
Thank you, Brian. And Grace, from your perspective, am I right, there's 36 single room accommodation, and we keep that for the first years, so it's only first years get that. And then we support, as Brian said, with the additional. And within the vicinity of the campus, is there any activities nearby that can support you staying fit or healthy or whatever? Grace?
Yeah, so I think just to mention it is really important, I think, for it to be first years, because it's kind of, you know, you meet 36 friends in the first like 3 days, which is amazing. It kind of settled me anyway. And as Brian said, we're still friends 4 years later, so it definitely works. As regards like activities around it, the source is like a gym, swimming pool area just beside the college, and they actually do deals. So it's like student discount reduction things for membership, which is amazing. And again, it's kind of an opportunity to meet friends that in kind of different years. Like if Nikita was there and I was there, it's kind of an opportunity outside of the campus to meet someone. I suppose Thurles too, you know, the nightlife, there is a nightlife in Thurles. So it's obviously an opportunity to make friends too. I suppose we're very much talk about the academic side, but it's great fun in Thurles.
Well, there are many ways of learning, Grace. There are many ways of learning.
Yeah, Kokinta. But I know like Emma hasn't experienced that yet, but it's something for her to look forward to. It's just a pity that we didn't get to meet you, because we'd actually be great friends. It's kind of weird in that way that it doesn't really matter what year you are in Thurles, everyone is friends with everyone. You know, like Nikita and I are both from Cork, we'd sit in the train together, not a bother, which is kind of, I suppose, a different experience. But yeah, on campus, there's a load of activities on campus, but because Thurles is, you know, you're really in the centre of the town, you can just get involved in a lot of other things. You know, there's tag rugby blitzes. A few people have actually transferred to Thurles to play sport there if they're from, like, I suppose, further away. So there is an awful lot of opportunities apart from that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Grace. And yeah, I mean, the crack in the curriculum, you have to merge, you have to have a bit of fun, and it's a way of meeting people and of sharing ideas. And I know that in some establishments you have been found to talk about Plato and Socrates into the early hours of the morning. I'm well aware of that too. There's another few questions here, if I may ask, and I'm just going to hold on the placement one. One question here: are incoming first years allowed to visit the college at any time soon? I really wish you could visit today. I wish you could have been, as our lovely panel said. Actually, being on the campus can be the deal maker. You actually, you know, the penny drops, as Bevan said. She knew it was the right place. Emma said you just have that gut feeling. But as soon as our campus is allowed open, we will be more than happy to facilitate people who may wish to come and visit. But at the moment, due to public health restrictions, we're not in a position to do anything. But if and when we are allowed to open up, we certainly will, and we'll arrange by appointment. You can ring the college and you can come and have a look around, and you can see the single room accommodation and the lecture theatres and everything else, and maybe meet with myself or one or two colleagues if we happen to be here, and indeed maybe some students that are nearby as well. Okay, there's a questions about placement, and I suppose I just explained placement first of all. As Grace said, year one placement is a quarter of your program. So you got your 2 subjects, that's half the program. You've got your education, that's 3/4, and the final quarter is school placement. And every year you encounter school placement in one form or another. And we are extending our understanding of school placement to include, as Emma said, being a Canara in the Gaeilge. That's part of your teaching practice as well, and we're looking at how to capture all those experiences. If you work on a summer camp, if you train a team, all of that can come in. But the formal school placement is year 1 is a week in a primary school, as Grace said. Year 2 is 6 weeks. Year 3 can be abroad or at home for 2 weeks with an inclusion lens, and year 4 then is going to be a 14-week extended placement now, and that's going to involve you out on placement for the last semester of your program. At all times, we support you on school placement. I'll ask everybody to talk about their experience of school placement online this year, those of you who are involved in that, but also talk about the more normal face-to-face school placement. And I guess a very good question here was around the confidence. Did any of you find it hard from a confidence point of view to go out on school placement? And how did you overcome the challenges associated with school placement, and who helped you overcome those challenges? So I'll start maybe on this. Okay, Emma, you can take a break because it doesn't really apply to you. I know you got out for your primary week, But Alana, do you want to maybe start from a second year experience, and then I'll ask Nikita and Byrne, and then I'll go to Grace and Brian.
Yeah, so this year in January, I had 5 weeks of placement, and it was my first experience really getting to teach and getting a feel for what it's going to be like for the next couple of years. And we had the hopes, we'd been planning that we were going to actually be in person, but then, as you guys know, we went into lockdown, so we had to do it online, and it definitely was a very, very nerve-wracking time. I mean, we'd been preparing to be in person, so it was quite a change to not actually get to meet the students, the staff, or anything before we went in. But I have to say that it was still a fantastic experience. I mean, the schools that you're working with, they really do the best they can to help you. They're so supportive, they're so accommodating. But the college as well, they were fantastic. Finn and Charlie, he's the placement coordinator, they set up meetings every week for all the students who were out on placement, and it gave us an opportunity to get together to share any concerns we had, or even like share the positive experiences we had or success stories. And it definitely gave like a more normal feel to placement, being able to interact with our classmates and to hear how everybody else was getting on as well. So although it was online and it was a different experience than we were expecting, it was still a very, very positive experience.
Okay, thank you, Alana. And I'm going to go to Byrne and then Nikita, maybe not so much this year, but last year when you were on placement face to face, what was that experience like, and how were you assisted with that issue of confidence?
Yeah, so obviously the first time you stand in front of the class, it's going to be a little bit daunting, but the whole of first year we spent learning how to speak in front of our own class. Our tutorials with Finn were spent teaching, like we started off teaching with another student beside us and team teaching. So then by the time that it actually came around to being on your own, you still had a little bit more confidence. And then of course, opportunities to speak like this at open days, at student teacher experiences, any excuse to get up and talk is boosting your confidence to a certain extent. And that's what I mean about Thurles being that smaller college. You're given more opportunities to actually fully assert yourself and engage in college life. I know it stood to me. And of course, it's not as if you're being thrown off the deep end, you're sent out on placement and that's it for 6 weeks, you don't hear from college. The same with Alana, Finn and Charlie and our placement tutors and even our lecturers. If we had a question, they're all on hand to help. They're only a call away. I'm very much supported throughout the whole thing.
Okay, thank you, Byrne, for that. And Nikita, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I suppose similar to Byrne, as she said, like, the tutorials really prepare you to go out on placement, and the support from the college while you're on placement is fantastic. But obviously it would be normal if you weren't nervous going out on placement. And even the first week I went out, my hands were nearly shaking going into the classroom because I was so nervous. But you kind of come out of your shell throughout the 6 weeks. So I started off my first week, I was very quiet, and then, as I say, you develop your teacher voice. And it kind of comes, you don't know where it comes from, but you gain this great confidence over placement. And it's just by standing up and actually teaching the students that you fall in love with your course. And I know for me, really, it was a game changer because I absolutely loved placement. I'd go back in the morning if you asked me to. It was just fantastic.
Great stuff, Nikita. Yeah, and I think it is a game changer for many of us because there's kind of a phony thing going on. You're learning to teach, but you're still not out there actually teaching, and then eventually you are. I'm going to come to Grace and then Brian, because you had the unusual experience of being online this year for part of your school placement because of the sudden closure of schools in January. And then when the schools opened, you were back into face to face. And maybe, Grace, you might tell us about how do you get to choose the school, or who helps you choose the school?
Yeah, so even I'm looking at one of the things they're saying, can you choose the same school twice during placement? So basically it's just kind of you put down your preference list of, in your schools in your locality, but where you'd like to go. So I don't know, am I allowed to say the school, Finn, that I went to?
I think it's okay, yeah.
So in second year, I chose Kinsale Community School. So it was a mixed school. I went to an all-girls convent, so I kind of wanted to change the experience. That was in person. And like, as Nikita said, you're kind of going up there initially being kind of petrified, but the students are great fun. Like, teaching is great fun. And it must be said, every day is not going to be perfect, but that's the whole point, that you better yourself so that the next day is going to be better. Then fast forward to this year, I did 12 weeks in my secondary school that I went to myself in Cloughton Turbot Bandon, an all-girls school. Again, different experience being up the top of the classroom, going into the staff room, but it was phenomenal. I had 11 weeks online out of the 12. But you kind of just adapt to the situation. I suppose that's kind of a very basic answer, but you really do. You know, the students are enthusiastic and they want to learn. So you just get on with it. You try new methodologies, you try different ways of thinking and learning, and the students go along with it. If it doesn't work, change it, try something else. I was lucky enough that Brian and I got 1 week inside the school, so we did get to actually practice with the students and kind of, I suppose, put into place what we had done for the last 4 years. And actually, Brian and I were both, I'll just speak on behalf of you too, Brian. Brian and I were both kept on for substitutes for the last 6 weeks of school. So I suppose that's only credit to the college for preparing us enough to be able to go into a college, or to go into a secondary school after our placement and actually be there for the rest of the term, which was amazing.
Yeah, and a credit to yourselves that you were asked by the school to stay on and not shown the door. And that's a question answered there, actually, because we are comfortable with students staying on afterwards if it doesn't impede upon their studies or anything else. So that's that question answered as well. And thank you for that, Grace. And I guess the other piece, Brian, as well, is that we choose the schools in conversation with you, yourself. You choose your schools. Charlie has a look at the schools. We have a look at who can support you in the schools. So we don't throw you into any old school. And was that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. The schools that the MIC Thurles work with are all like hand-picked. Basically, there's a list. As kind of Grace said, that you fill out like your preference list of where you want to go. You put down 3 or 4 schools that might be in your locality that you would want to go for. Normally in second year, people try to stay away from their schools that they went to as a student, and they go experience another school and hold maybe their own school for 4th year or something like that. But like, my experience was my preference list, I didn't get any school that was on my preference list, but I was absolutely thrilled with the school that I did get. It was one of the best experiences that I did get. It was a school about half an hour away from my house that I had I've heard of, but I actually didn't even know where the school was. So I had to Google map it and stuff like that. But like, it was the best experience that I've ever had. Like, I'd love to go back to school. So if you do get a school that you're not familiar with or anything like that, don't in any way be disheartened. The MIC Thurles, they pick the schools that they know will support students in their learning, and schools that are familiar with the program that MIC run. So like, even one of my cooperating teachers on second year was a past pupil of MIC Thurles, and she's actually still coming back now as a methodology tutor as well. So like, you have those connections as well, and the schools alongside the college and the placement tutors and everything support the students as much as possible while on the school placement. It's not a case that when you go out in your 6 weeks or your 12 weeks that you're just completely forgotten about. They're like, oh, they're off campus now, not our problem. It's completely the opposite. We've regular check-ins, we've regular emails, regular communication with the college that support you. If you have any issues or anything like that, that you know that there's only an email or a phone call away, the solution. And like, as kind of that's already been said already, that I'd be nervous if you were not nervous. I'd be worried if you were not nervous going in on your first day. Like, you know, everyone's going to be nervous. It's just the nature of it. You're going to be nervous when you go into your first job, whether that be in Centra, your part-time job, or whatever that is. You're going to be nervous. So it's the same thing going into a school. But as Nikita kind of said there, as the weeks go by, you kind of just pick up on different stuff. You watch different teachers deal with something like that, and you pick up on even the smallest things like voice or how they speak to a student or something like that. So school placement is definitely one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole 4 years, for me anyway, definitely. And yeah, online was difficult, but you just adapt to the situation. You find your methodologies that work. You get to know the students as well. Like, I was teaching first years about the life of Palestine and Jesus and stuff like that. But as we were talking about the food that would have been in Palestine, I'd ask them their kind of favorite type of food, or if we were talking about the clothes that were worn or something like that, I'd be like, what clothes brands do you like? You know, stuff like that, there's always a way around kind of being online. Like there's always a way of getting to know the students as you would if you were in the classroom as well. So yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. And yeah, it's a joint effort, and I suppose it reflects well upon our college that you were so flexible, both Alana, Grace, and Brian particularly this year, because you're prepared to be flexible, because you need to be flexible to be a good teacher. Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about the course, and we've spoken about school placement, we've spoken about accommodation, but and maybe a little bit about the crack and what goes on in Thurles. And I suppose what I like about Thurles is that as places go, it's relatively safe, and that when you are out, that, you know, people look out for each other. And I even know of scenarios where, you know, stories are relayed to say, look, somebody might need a little bit of help because of whatever. And I think that's wonderful that we have that close-knit community, and that we can keep an eye out for each other. Can I just ask on the sporting front, there's a question here that I think Grace O'Reilly has to answer, and nobody else can answer this question, okay? And the question is, I'm sorry now to everybody else, where is it gone? Do you need to be a current camogie or Gaelic football player to join the clubs? Over to you, Grace.
Thanks, Finn. Might just drop it in there too that we won All Ireland 3 years ago, so you know.
There you go.
No, absolutely not. You don't have to be. I was playing camogie in my hometown village, but you don't have to be at all. And I think it's actually a great thing just to get involved in. I was rubbish, still am, but it's lovely to just get involved in it. You don't have to be amazing at camogie. It's just great to get involved in it. And another question that just come in there saying that, is it the ladies football and camogie, is it just a big panel or for first years only? When I was there, Finn, I assume it's the same. It's just one panel.
Yeah.
But I think that's actually best because it allows first years to fourth years to get to know each other really well outside of school. You know, it's not meeting them in the library. It's on a pitch. It's a bit more casual. It's just kind of like meeting them in Lark Orbits or whatever. So don't be afraid that if you're not a good camogie player, you don't think you are, get involved, or ladies football, absolutely throw yourself in there. You know, we went up and played St. Pat's in Dublin, and we had a team of 13 because people were in placement, and 2 girls never played camogie in their life. On the bus they came, gave them a helmet, gave them a hurley, and off they went. So it's definitely something that I would really encourage you to get involved in, and it's just great crack.
Yeah, and great crack over great victories has always been our mantra. And the funny thing is, if you focus on the crack, you win the matches. And what we discovered, I suppose, as well, Grace, is that we do have our own teams, as in their MIC Thurles teams, and we have, okay, we're steeped, given we're in Thurles, we're steeped in the JA. But the other thing to remember always is you can start any club or society that you want. And if you get 20 names on a sheet of paper, the Students' Union and ourselves will actually fund to support you in that regard. So that's an important point as well, which is, again, going back to Baben's point, a small college, you can do things that you mightn't normally do in a bigger college. And sport and activities are incredibly important to us. We know all about well-being, we know all about eating well, sleeping well, having plenty of activities, and we support any which way we can for that to happen. Does anybody else want to come in on the sporting side of things, or the additional activities that you can or could be involved in? I think we've covered nearly most questions. There's one question here on timetabling, which I'm trying to find again. The Gaeilge one, yes, the Gaeilge one, yes, you do have to go to the Gaeilge. We encourage you to go to the Gaeilge, either in your own time, as Emma said, or as formal part of the programme. It is a formal part of the programme, but again, we can talk more about that when we meet you. I think it was how, yeah, maybe look, the question is basically how much time are you timetable for class-wise, and you know, how heavy is it from the point of view of you're a young person, you might need to do work, as in gain some wages to keep yourself going. And by the way, I know most students who work because they have to, not because it's for socializing, far from it. So how did you find the college support from the point of view of timetable? When do you start on a Monday? When do you finish on a Friday? And the class contact time, was it okay? Is it too heavy? What would your advice be to students? Emma, I'm going to ask you first because you have the strange experience of being online, and then I'll ask everybody else from the point of view of their time on campus, which hopefully will be where we are in September. So do you want to just say, Emma, from your experience?
I think like the timetable was actually really good. From what I remember, on Monday mornings we used to start at 10 o'clock. So that was, you know, it was kind of nice just to get started for the week. And I never had a class past 12 o'clock on a Friday, which was also really good because I work at the weekends. So I was able to get some work done on Friday evenings, then actually have my weekend to work on Saturday and enjoy a day off like on Sundays. But like, for the most part of the week, I would never be in lectures or anything past 4 o'clock. It was normally between 10 and 4 o'clock, and you'd always have maybe an hour or two off during the day. So that was really good when you were at home because you could, you know, be doing lectures online, and then you might have an hour or two gap during the day, and you might like to go for a walk or, you know, go to the shop or just take a break from the computer and then come back to it. So it was really good in a way because I have friends who are in other colleges and they were glued to the computer from like 10 to 4, 10 to 5 without any breaks. So the breaks during the day really just really made the days just a lot easier, like, and you didn't feel like you were there for hours.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go to Alana from your time in first year. Can you remember, was there a nice balance of class contact and study time?
Yeah, definitely. So my experience in first year was that the majority of my classes started either at 9 or 10 in the morning, and most days I think I had like at most 4 hours in college, and it would be spaced nicely throughout the day. I think the latest I was in was 5 o'clock, but there were plenty of breaks in between, and it was a chance to, you know, go for a walk. There's some lovely coffee shops in Thurles where like we could go and meet all our friends and socialize like that, but also time to go to the library, get a bit of work done if we needed to. So like all the pressure wasn't on us in the evenings or anything. So I think it is definitely very well organized and it's very, very manageable.
Yeah, thanks, Alana. And we do try, as Emma said as well, we do try start a little bit late on a Monday, give you a chance to get here rather than a Sunday night. And some people find it, you know, a little bit tricky coming from home. So at least you can have Sunday night at home. And because we have students from Killarney to Killybegs and everywhere in between, we do try and finish up early on a Friday so that people can get back. Like some of our students have considerable journeys to get back home, so we do try and finish as best we can around lunchtime on a Friday if at all possible. Okay, Bevan, do you want to talk about timetable from your experience?
Yeah, so when I started in Thurles, I thought it was the weirdest thing ever that we actually had a lunchtime. Like we had an hour allocated each day at 1 o'clock for lunchtime, which obviously we didn't have when I done first year. And at the start I was kind of like, oh yeah, but by the time you get to your second semester, when you're actually in the swing of things, it's so useful. Even obviously to grab lunch or whatever, but if you've had an hour before, you can spend that time in the library, you can go get the book you needed to get, or just sit in the ref and chat to people. The ref in the college is probably where I've met most people and like been introduced to most people. The lecturers are always wandering around. Finn, Paula, Rob, everyone's kind of, it's the centre of the college and it's where everyone congregates, and it's kind of where the community comes together, for all the want of a better.
Good. Thanks, Bevan. Sorry for cutting across you. Yeah, I take that point that you learn in different ways. You learn in class, you learn with your study, but you also learn in conversation. And sometimes the conversation can be the richest part of learning. So it is doable for those of you who are asking the question about the timetable. And there is a bit of, wriggle room, and we can negotiate and have conversations, just as we would around school placement as well, around what schools you need to go to. There are you have to go to a variety of schools, but you won't be sent anywhere too far away from home, certainly not. And you do need to get that mix in order to, because we are accredited by the Teaching Council, and the Teaching Council want you, and they're right, they want you to have a variety of experiences and a variety of settings, as Grace mentioned earlier on. I'm conscious of the time, and I would love, as always, to keep talking with you. I really wish this was an open day and everybody was on campus today, but this is our best effort. We will most definitely try and open up the campus to anybody who wishes to visit us, for those of you who are listening. But again, that's out of our hands at the moment, and all going well, we'll be open in September to welcome Alana and Emma and Nikita and Bevan back, and we might have Grace and Brian back as guest speakers. And very soon, Brian and Grace will be, I have no doubt, gainfully employed in teaching, and will be our cooperating teachers for possibly some of the people listening today. And that's how it works, and that's the wheel of life, and that's the magic about what we're doing. And I would just like to bring this session to a close. I'm scanning the questions. I think we covered most. Forgive us, folks, if we haven't covered everything. My email is freely available if anybody wants to email me subsequently with a question. And just before we go, it's coming up to 3 o'clock. Just before we go, folks, any words of advice to people thinking of coming to Thurles that maybe we didn't get to say? Does anybody want to add anything? Brian?
Sometimes, like leaving cert students, you kind of in the thing, or your friends are like, oh, why are you putting down Thurles? Like, why don't you go to like UCD or NUIG or UCC or something like that? And it was definitely the case for me that my friends were like, no, like seriously now, why are you putting down Thurles? But like, and I've even got a friend who said it to me a couple of weeks ago, was like, you really enjoyed your 4 years there. And I was like, yeah, I absolutely did. And like, they saw my stories and stuff like that of having just such a laugh and such good crack. So if you are thinking about teaching and you're really serious about thinking about teaching and you want to become a teacher and the subjects suit you, definitely consider Thurles. It's the right place to be if that's what you want to do in life. So don't be put off that it's a quiet town or it's a town that has no social life, because that's untrue. It's a great place to go if that's what you're interested in. That's all I'd say.
Thank you, Brian. Well said. And you got a few nodding heads as well as you spoke. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to come in? Nikita.
Just the last thing I'd say is don't second guess yourself, because I was the shy student in my class who wouldn't even speak. The teacher used to have to ask me to speak, and I remember sitting with her saying, you know, I don't think I can be a teacher, I'm too quiet. So definitely just don't be second guessing yourself and saying, am I able to do this? Because you definitely are able to do it. Speaking to someone who is very shy and is now quite confident in the classroom.
Thank you, Nikita, and that's a very well made point. And shyness and having a quiet voice can be very powerful when you go out teaching. Not the opposite. People think, oh, I'm shy and I'm not easily heard, but they're strengths, because you then are a role model to some of the young pupils in front of you who are shy and speak very quietly as well. I think The Power of Quiet, wasn't it, that book that we used to look at around being powerful in that sense. And yeah, it's like teaching is your talents realized, isn't it? It's as you come on campus, you think you're learning loads, but in fact what you're doing in part is you're revealing to yourself what you already had, and that's what we're trying to do in Thurles. And Tara Westover's line about, you know, it was always in you, and that's what I would say to graduates if we ever get to meet you. You know, we can thank everybody in Thurles, and rightly so, but ultimately all we do is bring out the magic that's already in you. It's just that we've got the pleasure of 4 years of doing that in each other's company and in the company of the schools. So thank you for that, Nikita. Anybody else would like to come in? by the way, sorry, Baben, yeah, go ahead.
Just really quickly, obviously we'd love you to come to Thurles, but no matter where you go, literally jump in with 2 feet, take everything that's thrown at you and just get involved. As I said, I've had some amazing opportunities, but you need to put yourself out there to a certain extent and you will reap the rewards when you do enter a classroom.
Absolutely, that's so true. And you know, what's for you won't go past you, as my mother says. And I too was one of those students who wanted to be a primary teacher, and it didn't happen for me. And I've never been in a happier job than the job I'm in. And you know, things happen for a reason.
It has completely changed, and I'm dead set on secondary now.
Yeah, exactly. So look, things happen for a reason. Go with the flow. If you're coming our way, you'll be more than welcome, and we really look forward to meeting you. And wherever you go, we wish you well with your career choices. And you're of an age now, those of you listening in, where you can have multiple careers, and you know, it's not the be all and end all, this leaving cert. It's just a staging post. And as somebody said to me, you know, if the exams go against you, blame the exams, don't blame yourself. Give it your best shot, and if Thurles makes sense, we'd be delighted to see you. And if we can at all, we will try and open up the campus, but we, fingers crossed, will be face to face in September, especially for Emma, who's had 1 day on campus. And I'd like to thank you all as we finish. So thank you, Emma from first year, Alana from second year, Nikita and Baven from third year, and Grace and Brian from fourth year. A pleasure as always to be in your company. Thank you for today, and have a great summer. I know that we'll be in touch in different ways between now and next September. So, Toga Boga, Slán Live, and thank you everybody for tuning in.